Kurt Busch is out for another race this weekend in Richmond, and Tigers will substitute for him once again. Kimi Räikkönen tests a next-gen car and tests an Action Express car as he gets prepared for his Cup Series debut at Watkins Glen, and Charters are expected to cost around $20 million. What's going on, guys? This is Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to go ahead and start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump into those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2022 Kleenex Kroger scheme that I believe you're going to see this weekend at Richmond. Pretty cool to see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. bring Kleenex back into the sport. They haven't sponsored a NASCAR Cup Series car in a long time, so pretty cool for sure, and hopefully he will have a good run in this car this weekend at Richmond. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is John Hunter Nemechek's 2022 Safeway scheme we're going to be seeing this weekend in the Truck Series race at Richmond. Pretty good looking scheme, in my opinion. Pretty awesome as Safeway's jumping on board with John Hunter Nemechek. I believe this is the first time they sponsored him so far this year, so really cool to see that for sure, and paint scheme looks good in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Cole Custer's 2022 Jacob Company scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Richmond. I love this paint scheme. Love the blue, love everything about it. I think did a good job on this paint scheme, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend here at Richmond. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Michael McDowell's 2022 Chicago Pneumatic scheme we're going to see this weekend at Richmond. Chicago Pneumatics has been sponsoring Todd Gillen this season, but now they jump on board to work with Michael McDowell. Just similar to Todd Gillen's schemes, I like this scheme too. I think it looks really good in my opinion. Hopefully Michael McDowell can have a good run in this car. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Harrison Burton's 2022 Dutch Boy Menard scheme to see this weekend at Richmond. I don't think we've ever seen him run Dutch Boy on his car, so that's really cool. Also love the different variety of the colors. I love it. There's kind of like a different version of the colors, like neon colors on there. I really like that. And I think his paint scheme looks pretty good in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chase Elliott's 2022 Napa CRC brake lean scheme we'll be seeing this weekend at Richmond. There's really not much to say here other than the fact that they've got CRC brake lean on the car. Other than that, there's really not much going on here, but I think the scheme does look decent. Hopefully, Chase Elliott will have a good run in this car this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Eric Almirola's 2022 Gold Bowling scheme that we're going to see next weekend at Watkins Glen. I absolutely love this paint scheme. Of course, Gold Bowling has sponsored Eric Almirola pretty much every time we have a Gold Bowling race. I think this looks really good. Really solid. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend, and not this weekend, next weekend at Watkins Glen. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Bilicki's 2022 Sargento scheme they'll be seeing this weekend, not this weekend, next weekend at Watkins Glen. Yes, after they ran into the billboard, Sargento is sponsoring Josh Bilicki. This looks amazing in my opinion. I think this is the better 45 scheme in my opinion. This looks amazing. So happy Sargento is stepping up and sponsoring Josh Bilicki. I think that's awesome, and I'm definitely looking forward to see this car out on the racetrack next weekend at Watkins Glen. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Gibbs' 2022 Jordan brand scheme that we're going to see this weekend at Richmond. I love this paint scheme. I love it. They're running like the Concord colors for the Jordan brand. Really amazing that Michael Jordan continues to sponsor. Of course, Michael Jordan is the second time that the Jordan brand is sponsoring the 45 car this season. I think they're going to sponsor me one more time this year, but this looks really awesome in my opinion, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Richmond. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Dean Thompson's 2022 Southeastern Fright Line scheme they're going to see this weekend. Also Carson Osabars as well. We're both going to see this weekend. They look pretty good in my opinion. Hopefully Dean Thompson can have a good run. Other than that, there's not much to say here. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Berry's 2022 Back to School Harrison scheme they're going to see this weekend at Richmond. Not this weekend, later this year at Darlington. Pretty good looking paint scheme, in my opinion. It looks pretty solid. I'm not a big fan of the back to school on there, but it does look pretty solid. Hopefully, we'll see Josh Berry have a good run in this car in a couple weekends later at Darlington. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Richmond Purses for this weekend. Of course, every week, Bob Poggers puts out the purses that NASCAR will have for this week, every weekend. For this weekend, the Cup Series will be $7,144,995, and then for the Truck Series is $744,951, meaning that the Cup Series drivers altogether are going to get paid 10 times more money as a series than the Truck Series is. Make sense. But Cup, pretty solid numbers when it comes to the purse money. Trucks, not so much. They don't really have an insane amount of purse money, but that is the purse numbers for this weekend here at Richmond. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about pre-race festivities. Now, there have already been announced some concerts that are going to be happening and some other pre-race festivities that are going to be happening for the rest of the season. So it was announced that Nelly, who's from the St. Louis area, who's also involved in the big concert happening here in St. Louis for Gateway, he's also going to be doing the pre-race concert at the Charlotte Roval. Chase Rice will be doing a pre-race concert at Talladega. Chase Rice, of course, who is also not only just a singer, but also a former pit crew member for Hendrick Motorsports. He'll be doing a pre-race concert for Talladega. And then Lee Greenwood is going to be performing God Bless America in Kansas on the September 11th weekend. Pretty cool. They've got three kind of big names. Chase Rice isn't the most well-known name. A lot of people know who Nelly is. And, of course, Lee Greenwood, who's best known for God Bless the USA. Pretty cool. They've got those as a pre-race festivities, and hopefully they'll all perform really, really well at those pre-race festivities. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mark Faber. As it was announced yesterday that Mark Faber has been named GM of Texas Motor Speedway. Believe that Mark Faber has been working like some AT&T Mobile in Las Vegas and has also been part of the SMI group for a very, very long time. My hope is that Mark Faber can come in here as a GM and really fix up a lot of things going on with Texas Motor Speedway, because I'm going to be frank and honest with a lot of people. I think Texas Motor Speedway is not a great racetrack. The track is beautiful, but unfortunately how they've laid out is absolutely horrendous. They've gotten really, I will say, promotion has been good, but there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and hopefully what I'm hoping and praying is that Mark Faber can come in there and fix those problems as a GM. Ron Ramage, I think, moves up to a much higher up role. We'll see Mark Faber become the GM. Hopefully he'll do really well as a GM for Texas Motor Speedway. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about Kevin Harvick, as Joe Sturgley always does these really, really interesting fact reports that he puts out every single week. And he put out that Kevin Harvick led a race high at Michigan of 38 laps. Of course, Kevin Harvick picked up his first victory in almost 2 years this past weekend. According to him, he says only 4 times in Cup Series history has a driver who led the most laps led smaller portion of the race. Now, when you look at historically at races that have happened in Michigan, a lot of the Michigan races have generally had like high lap numbers of led. Kyle Larson led a lot of laps last year. I believe Chase Elliott led a lot of laps last year. And I think one of the reasons why we're seeing less laps being led this year is because I think the competition. We have higher competition. You're going to have the leader who leads the most laps not lead as much as they usually do. So it's not a major surprise to me, and I'm not really, really surprised by this, but it just shows how competitive the field currently is at the moment, and I think that's pretty cool and great to see. That basically, that's pretty cool in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR Productions. As Adam Server and multiple reporters have reported that NASCAR later this month will break ground on a $28.5 million, 58,000 square foot production facility next to its R&D center in Concord, North Carolina. The plan as well is to hire a bunch of employees and move all the employees that are in the old production facility to this new productions facility. I think it's really cool they're building a new productions facility. What I think is going to come out here is I think it's going to be a lot better quality for not just only broadcast, but also what NASCAR does. And don't get me wrong, the productions group that does a lot of the group does an amazing job. But I think they're going to only just do better. I think they're absolutely going to do much better with this. And I think it's cool that the NASCAR Productions Group is building a new building. I think it's going to help for sure. I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm definitely excited to see the NASCAR Productions. They are currently working on that. I think it's cool they're building a new square building. I think it's pretty cool. And it's really, really awesome in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Cars Late Model Tour. As the Cars Late Model Tour race that was supposed to happen next weekend on August 19th through 20th, that race at North Wilkesboro has unfortunately been canceled. Now, we really were never given a good reason why the race was canceled, and it really is a disappointment, but they are handing out refunds to people that purchased tickets for that race, so they're going to be handing out refunds for people, and some of the season pass people. I think they're going to be handed some refunds back as well for that. It's such a big disappointment because I know the Cars Late Model Tour really wanted to go out there. I know that they've been really wanting to go to North Wilkesboro for a long time. It really is a shame that they have problems getting things through. But it's not a major surprise and not a major shock to me. I know there's been a lot of Cars Late Model Tour races over the years that have been canceled. I would assume probably an issue with the tires. That's my assumption, but I really don't know at this point. But it definitely is a big disappointment for sure, and it sucks they had to cancel the race. But again, it's not a major surprise in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about we're going to talk about Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott, as both their cars were actually sent to the R&D Center this past week, and we actually had to wait another day for them to reveal that from the R&D Center. Well, according to what we heard yesterday, they had no penalties from the R&D Center, and their cars passed inspection through the R&D Center. Now, why are we watching the R&D Center? Because usually the R&D Center is where we don't get a lot of major penalties. Well, 2 times so far this year, and it really comes from the Ford camp. So far this year, we've seen penalties from Michael McDowell, and we've seen penalties from Brad Keselowski, 100-point penalties. So that's why we're watching this from the R&D Center. Usually, you don't get major penalties from the R&D Center, but NASCAR will take a look at these cars. They select a few cars that are up near the front of the field, and they usually decide if they're going to send them back or not. But it's good to see at least that the 11 team was legal this time, unlike last time when they got DQ'd, when they actually crossed the line first, but they got DQ'd. And I think it's good that they both pass in R&D from the R&D Center, and maybe NASCAR can learn something from these tests at the R&D Center. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Darian Grubb. As it was officially revealed that Darian Grubb is going to be the crew chief for Kimi Raikkonen at Watkins Glen. Of course, we'll talk more about Kimi Raikkonen here at the later portion of today's episode. But, of course, we will be seeing him crew chief for the first time since, I think, 2018. I believe Darian Grubb did some crew chief work for William Byron back in 2018, and crew chief near the end of the 2017 season for Casey Kane as well. Darian Grubb's been working with Trackhouse Racing for a year or two. I think we actually talked about this earlier this year, that he was expected to be the crew chief, but there really was never an official confirmation really from the team. But now we've got that official confirmation. I am very intrigued to see how Darian Grubb's going to do as a crew chief. Again, he has not crew chief for a couple of years. I think the last time, like I mentioned, had been a crew chief was back in 2018. But he's been one of the higher ups at Trackhouse, and I will say he's been a big part in really helping out Trackhouse Racing really improve as an organization. And you look at Trackhouse Racing, everything they've been doing this year. I think Kimi Raikkonen is going to surprise a lot of people, and I'll talk about why when we get to his portion of this video. But I think it's really awesome and really great to see that Darian Grubb will be the crew chief. I think it's pretty cool and pretty awesome to see. In my honest and sincere opinion, I think it's pretty awesome. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Auto Club. We got an update from Auto Club. We already talked about this on the channel. But Auto Club, we're starting to see more seats being taken out. Now, why are they taking seats out? Well, the plan right now is that for 2023, they're going to have a 2-mile course. But long-term in 2024, they're hoping to have the short track project could happen. They're still trying to get approved, but it's expected at this point that the short track project is going to happen. Now, like I mentioned, stands are being currently taken out as we speak at Auto Club. And I know a lot of people have been really against this move. Now, as much as I was a massive fan of the races past year at Auto Club, let's be honest, I don't think even a repave is going to make the racing great. I know the next-gen cars made the racing a lot better, but I think that long-term we're not going to see as much good intermediate racing with the next-gen car. So I think that's why they're going to move it over to the short track racing, why they're going to be moving it to the short track. And I just don't think a repave is going to make the racing a lot better. So that's why they're making it a short track. I would rather have like Texas convert to a short track, but at the same time, I understand what NASCAR is doing here, and I think they really want to make it the season finale as well. I think they're working on this to maybe make it eventually a season finale, which, again, I think it'd be cool if it did end up genuinely becoming the season finale long term. Move away from Phoenix, and again, with what it's being proposed for the short track, hope the racing is really good at the short track, and I know people will show up to it, but hopefully when we do have the short track race, people will actually show up, and we'll see a really good show put on there. Hope it is a good racing for sure. And again, it sucks that we're losing a 2-mile track to put on good racing. But in all seriousness and honesty, I think the racing is actually going to be a lot better with the short track in the future, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Josh Williams. As it was announced on Wednesday that Josh Williams has officially parted ways with BG McLeod Motorsports for the remainder of the 2022 season and will not continue driving for this team throughout the rest of 2022. I will say this, I'm definitely disappointed, but I'm not really surprised. I love Josh Williams, but it has been an extremely disappointing season for Josh Williams. Not only is he really struggled in this car that we all thought he was really going to do really well, but also Josh Williams has had a lot of DNQs this year, has not been able to qualify for a ton of races this year, and in a lot of races this year, he's really struggling. And I feel like that this has been kind of a downgrade year compared to driving for DGM Racing, and I think it's proved that DGM Racing right now at this moment is a better organization right now than BJ McLeod Motorsports. Now, Josh Williams says he does have some opportunities that are coming up here in the future. I really do hope that Josh Williams gets an opportunity to race with another organization, maybe he gets an opportunity with really good teams. I think Josh Williams is better than what he's shown. We saw how good he was at DGM Racing. But again, I'm disappointed that he's not running with the team anymore. But like I said, I'm really not entirely shocked or really surprised at this point, because while, yes, I like Josh Williams, it's just been an extremely disappointing and a really frustrating year to be a Josh Williams fan. So I hope Josh Williams does find an opportunity to continue racing. It's been, like I said, though, a disappointing year, and hopefully Josh Williams has an opportunity to find a place to race next year. I'm disappointed, but I can't say that I'm surprised. I'm not very shocked, to be honest with you, that he's not been able to do good this year. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about NBC and their schedule for Richmond. Now, Casey Campbell always puts out, one of my good buddies basically always puts out who's going to be on the broadcast for the weekend. And for the second weekend in a row, Dale Jr. is going to be the lead announcer, and Rick Allen is going to be on pit road. Now, this is definitely very interesting. They decided to put Dale Jr. as a lead commentator once again, and then you're going to have Rick Allen on pit road. Now, I honestly would rather have Rick Allen do lead commentary. No disrespect to Dale Jr. I think Dale Jr. does a solid job as a lead commentator. I don't think he's a bad lead commentator, but Rick Allen, in my opinion, is someone whoever is the lead commentator should be the lead commentator. I understand NBC's trying new things. I do love that they're able to go out and try new things, and a lot of things NBC has done is really good. But this, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this. Again, I don't hate this move, but I would rather have Rick Allen in the booth. You know what I mean? I think Rick Allen would do a really good job calling races, and I think he brings life. Now, I believe Rick Allen will be doing the commentary for the Xfinity Series race, but he won't be doing it for the Cup. He's going to be on pit road doing pit road reporting. Who would have thought that Rick Allen has been the lead commentator, is now getting forced to do pit road reporting, and Dale Jr. is lead commentating once again? I wonder if they're going to have Dale Jr. do a lot more races, especially when we get to the playoffs. That's one thing I'm very interested to see if that's going to happen. But that's what's going on right there. We'll see Dale Jr. be the lead commentator once again this weekend here at Richmond. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Petty GMS. Now, we already know at this point that Noah Gragson is going to be driving the 42 for Petty GMS in 2023. Now, they basically said yesterday, or a couple days ago, they said they got to have a lot of urgency and they really want to win right now. Now, why are they saying this? Well, Mike Beam says that the old age of the team's leadership has increased urgency to win right now. You look at the ages of the two individuals. Maury Gallagher is currently 72 years old, and Mike Beam is currently 67 years old. And they basically are saying that we got to start putting up results and winning races. And they're not really saying this about Eric Jones. They're really saying this about the 42 car. Now, let's talk about the move of Noah Gragson going over to the 42 car next year. Do I think that this is an upgrade for Petty GMS? Absolutely. I think Noah Gragson is a better driver than Ty Dillon right now. I think Noah Gragson isn't going to immediately win, but I think Noah Gragson is going to get that 42 car and much better opportunities to win. There's a lot of tracks to look at for Noah Gragson to be a threat than what Ty Dillon has done this year. Again, this is no disrespect to Ty Dillon, but I've not just been impressed with what Ty Dillon has currently been doing this year. I've not been impressed with what he's been doing. So I want to see more from him, maybe in Xfinity. I think he would be a really good driver for Xfinity for a car we might talk about here a later portion of this episode. But when I look at this, I think that I understand where they're coming from. Mike Beam's been in the industry for a long time, a former crew chief as well. I think for one of the Dillons, or basically for Richard Childress' team. But I really do believe that Petty GMS, they want to be successful and they want to get back to the top like they used to be. And I think they've got potential to do it this move. I think Noah Gragson is going to make that 42 car a lot more competitive. And I think it'll be someone who could really complement what Eric Jones is doing. And I think this is a good move, and hopefully we'll see what happens to the team, but I understand what they want. They want to be more competitive, and they really want to now start winning races as soon as possible. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Joey Logano and Bubba Wallace. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Cup Series race, you saw that Joey Logano basically put up some really credible blocks to block Bubba Wallace from going out to win. Bubba Wallace was not very happy after basically saying that he just said that Joey Logano basically had another Ford contract and he basically signed another Ford contract. Now, Joey Logano went on Sirius XM NASCAR radio on his show and said he says that Bubba Wallace texted him after the race and basically called him the modern Ryan Newman. And it was a very, very funny conversation for sure. And Joey Logano did give Bubba props saying he had a fast car. But he said Logano's job, his jobs to do is basically go out there and finish as well as he could. Then Bubba Wallace responded basically saying that Joey Logano did nothing wrong, basically telling his fans to really, really stop going after Joey Logano. Now, as much as I was not happy with Joey Logano's move, Joey Logano is actually in the right here. I think what Joey Logano was doing really was nothing wrong. He was racing really, really hard. He was racing pretty clean. Now, he did put that kind of aggressive block on Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson that nearly caused an accident between the three of them. But I don't think that this was what he did was really that egregious, to be honest with you. I really don't think what he did was that egregious. And I think a lot of Bubba Wallace fans like myself, yeah, I think Logano wasn't in the wrong. He's racing for a good finish. He's trying to get a great finish out of the day. Logano didn't have a fantastic car most of the day, to be honest. He got up there kind of because of strategy, but also because of good pit stops as well. You got to be fast on pit road. And if Bubba Wallace actually had chosen the outside line with Kevin Harvick, I really think Bubba Wallace could have beaten Kevin Harvick. And we could have been talking about a much different story that we could have had Bubba Wallace winning instead of Kevin Harvick winning. But it is what it is. They moved on. It looks like, again, they're good friends, and it seems like. And, you know, I think Bubba Wallace has a lot of respect in the garage. He's got a lot of people that really, really like him. Kevin Harvick likes talking to Bubba Wallace. We know Logano likes Bubba Wallace. We know Jimmy Johnson, who used to be in NASCAR, mentors Bubba a little bit. I think that we're going to see Bubba Wallace win a race in the near future, and I think Logano's going to have success before the end of the year, absolutely. But Logano's doing what he needs to do. He's going out there and racing hard, and that's really all you can ask from a driver. I think racing hard is not a bad thing, and in all honesty and all seriousness, I got no problem with it, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 2023 NASCAR schedule. Now, the 2023 NASCAR schedule has not been revealed currently at the moment. And someone asked Bob Pockrass on when the 2023 NASCAR schedule is going to be revealed. Now, Bob Pockrass responded to this individual, and he says that NASCAR hopes to announce the Cup schedule in the next few weeks, but not an exact date of when they're going to release it. They're also hoping to have the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series schedule out sometime in the middle of September. So about a month from now, they're going to hopefully release the NASCAR Xfinity and Truck Series schedules, probably back-to-back and really close to each other. Now, why are we still waiting on the schedule? Well, I think they're still wanting a major change. I listened to the Casey Campbell podcast, and I believe Bob Pockrass is on the Casey Campbell podcast, and Bob Pockrass had basically said that they're wanting to do at least one more massive change that really could benefit the sport long-term. It's one thing that they're basically trying to do. Now, let's talk about what's going on for the 2023 schedule, what is confirmed currently at the moment. We know the Road America, that's gone. Chicago Street Course is being added for 2023. Gateway is expected to have their day for 2023. They're expected to have 2 more years with this track. They're also expecting the Daytona 500 to be back. COTA, it sounds like more than likely they're coming back. Indy Road Course, that's coming back for 2023. There's a lot of changes that are coming, of course. Phoenix, of course, the season finale. But I don't know how many major and crazy changes we're going to see for 2023. But I do think we're going to see a lot of changes as we do get closer to around 2024 or 2025. Now, NASCAR is out to talk about potentially wanting to go international and go internationally next year. We're just still going to have to wait and see what happens in that. But again, really cool that they're looking at that, maybe some major changes, hopefully, in the future. And the 2023 schedule, hopefully, will be released in the next couple weeks. My prediction is that it gets released around the second to last week. Probably not next week, but probably around the 25th or 26th of August. That's my prediction. I think that's when they're going to release the 2023 schedule, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the rumors around the 9 car. Now, yesterday there were some wild rumors going around the Junior Motorsports camp. Because remember, like I mentioned earlier in today's video, Noah Gragson is going to be jumping up full-time to Petty GMS. So the big question right now is who is going to be jumping in to the 9 car next season? Well, there have been a lot of rumors and rumors. One of the drivers that has been considered for the 9 car is Drew Dollar. Drew Dollar has a lot of funding. He brings a ton of funding into the sport and would be able to fund that 9 car to run the whole entire season. And it had been actually reported, and there was a really crazy link that went out saying that he was going to be going into the 9 car in 2023. Well, not so fast. Ryan Williams, who does designing for Junior Motorsports, basically shut that rumor down and said that it is not happening as of now and that he will not be driving the 9 car for Junior Motorsports. So we can take Drew Dollar out of the conversation. Honestly, thank God as of now that Drew Dollar is not getting in that ride. Look, as much, again, he's been really, really funny on Twitter. Cannot deny that. But I want to be honest with you guys. I don't think Drew Dollar is that great of a driver. Drew Dollar has been very, very disappointing in trucks. Had one top 10 with KBM in 2021. He literally has struggled in a lot of races this year. Was not good at KBM at ARCA. Did terrible there. And just really hasn't done much. So that's why I don't think Drew Dollar is getting picked up. So I think Dale Jr. is a lot smarter than picking up a driver like Drew Dollar. There's a lot of drivers deserve this opportunity more. Drivers like Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar always not won a race. He's been extremely competitive in the 42 camp this year. So he'd be a much better candidate. You look at other drivers like Chandler Smith, John Nemechek, Zane Smith. Some of those guys want to be kept in the Toyota camp, but some of them want to be kept in the Ford camp currently at the moment. But when it comes to the Drew Dollar situation, I honestly would like to see Carson Hocevar take the 9 car next year. Or maybe they make it a rotation car. Have multiple drivers. Maybe like Cole Custer comes in there for a few races. Ty Dillon comes in for a few races. Maybe they get like Ryan Preece out, maybe run a few races. Who knows at this particular point. But I'm honestly, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I don't want to see Drew Dollar full time. He's not that good. He'll do terrible and tear the equipment up, and we'll miss the playoffs in that car. Take that to the bank. I think he's going to struggle if he got into that car. So, good thing for sure. It looks like we're not going to be seeing him in the car. I think that's a big benefit for the field, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of 3 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Kimi Räikkönen. Now, we talked about Kimi Räikkönen on the channel here a couple days ago, but Kimi Räikkönen yesterday tested at Virginia International Raceway for the first time. According to what I've heard from multiple reports, he basically was testing a 31 Action Express racing car, basically the one that basically run for GT. His Action Express at one point was maybe rumored they were going to jump up. He's driving a 31 Action Express racing test car to get some experience at Virginia International Raceway. With the new rules and regulations that NASCAR basically has in place, also Mike Rockefeller, by the way, he also tested a shot with, I believe, one of the Action Express racing cars as well, next-gen cars. Basically, they have an option for all these people that have not had any laps to get a lot of experience to find a wheel, even though Kimi Räikkönen does have experience in the Camping World Truck Series. Like I said, from what I heard, the test went very, very well, and Kimi Räikkönen seems extremely excited. A couple days ago, he did simulator work with Daniel Suarez. He's got a lot of people from Trackhouse Racing that are helping him. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, Darren Grubb is going to be the crew chief. He also did a pit stop as well. And from what we heard, the pit stops also went very, very well. I don't think people realize how big of a deal this is for NASCAR that Kimi Räikkönen is coming in. And I feel like this story has kind of went under the radar with Kimi Räikkönen basically testing this car. And why is this big? Well, Kimi Räikkönen is a 2007 Formula One champion. He's also won a lot of Formula One races, and this is also not the first time that Kimi Räikkönen has competed in NASCAR. He actually competed in 2 races in NASCAR's top 3 divisions. He ran an Xfinity Series race in the 87 car for, I believe, KBM, which had partnership with Nemco Motorsports. We drove the 87 for KBM. He also, in the same weekend, drove the 15 for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Got a top 15 in the Truck Series race. I believe got a top 25 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race as well. And I think Kimi Räikkönen, I know that Justin Marks said this at the test as well yesterday. He said that Kimi Räikkönen is going to surprise a lot of people and think that Kimi is going to be a threat. And I'll be honest, I don't think Kimi Räikkönen is going to win, but I think Kimi Räikkönen could get a top 10. And the reason being is because Trackhouse Racing, you look at their organization, especially on the road courses, and with this being a Trackhouse car, I really think this car will be very, very competitive. I think Kimi will lead a couple laps. I really think he could. Whether it's off a pit strategy or being up front and qualifying, I think Kimi's going to surprise a lot of people, and I think he's going to be dangerous in this race as well. And what also has happened is you're having this major invasion and diversity of drivers. There's a lot of different drivers who are going to be at the race at Watkins Glen. You're going to have Mike Rockefeller, who's going to be in the 77 car from Germany. You've got a Finnish driver. You've got Danny Kvyat, who could be at Watkins Glen. You might have Tarson Marquet in the 79 Stage car. If that car shows up, it's unclear if they're going to be even there next week or not. You may have other drivers like Joff Villeneuve who could come in. And I just love it that we're seeing so many different diversities and different cultures and different backgrounds of different countries coming in and racing. I think it's great for the sport. And what this does for Kimi is basically what's going to happen here is I think it's going to bring a lot of people that are big fans of Kimi from Formula One. I think it's going to bring a lot of diversity and a lot of different cultures and backgrounds into watching this racing as well for the first time. There's a lot of people who have never seen a NASCAR race. When they see Kimi Räikkönen getting involved in racing, I think it's going to bring a lot of people in and a lot of insight. But I'm very excited about this for sure. Test went really, really well, and I know there were some arguments yesterday about why is he being in the car. Kimi Räikkönen, international driver. Justin Marks wants to bring a lot of international drivers in, and I really think that Kimi Räikkönen will be very successful. Don't expect to win, but I think Kimi Räikkönen will do very, very well in the Project 91 car next weekend at Watkins Glen. Really excited about that for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kurt Busch once again. As Kurt Busch, once again, is going to be sitting out this weekend at Richmond. The reason being is that he actually did some simulator work and said that he felt he was not ready to get behind the wheel of a next-gen car once again. Once again, meaning that Ty Gibbs will, for the 4th consecutive race, be driving and substituting for Kurt Busch. Now, first, I want to say I'm wishing Kurt Busch the best and wishing for a major, major speeding recovery. But we'll get in a little more why I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. But next, let's transition over to Ty Gibbs and my thoughts about Ty Gibbs getting behind the wheel once again. Absolutely, really, really needed. And I think the more experience for Ty Gibbs that he gets, the better he's going to be. And Ty Gibbs has already really impressed me in the 3 races I've seen so far. He has not finished outside the top 20 in the 3 races. His 3 finishes so far, 16th, 17th, and 10th. And he got that top 10 despite having a speeding penalty. So could you imagine if he not had that speeding penalty, where he could have finished? He potentially could have finished in the top 10 or even close to the top 5, which would have been extremely impressive for Ty Gibbs. Now, I think that Ty Gibbs is going to be underdog in this race for sure. I think Ty Gibbs will be somewhat of a contender. I think he will contend for top 5. I really believe he can. And the reason being is because I expect Toyota to really have a grasp on this field. I don't expect Ty Gibbs to win this weekend, but I think Ty Gibbs will absolutely be a threat to get a top 5 this weekend and continue to impress. And I've said this already, but I think Ty Gibbs is absolutely ready to make the jump up the Cup full time. He's been really impressive. I can't wait for that. And now getting back to Kurt Busch. Like I already said, I'm wishing the best for Kurt Busch and a speedy recovery for Kurt. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm starting to get really, really concerned about Kurt. This is starting to give me flashbacks to 2016 when it comes to Dale Jr. Now, do not get me wrong, I really love that Kurt is taking care of his safety. That needs to be 100% the most important thing. And if he doesn't feel like he's ready to jump back in, I think that's the right call. But I'm really, really worried about Kurt because this could potentially lead to early retirement for Kurt. It would not shock me or surprise me if Kurt Busch doesn't even come back for the rest of the year, or if he doesn't race next year. Now, I do think Kurt would love to race next year, and I think there's a good chance he will race in 2023. There's no doubt about that. I think there's a chance that Kurt Busch could race. But I'm really, really worried that there's a very good chance and a very high possibility that Kurt Busch may retire early. I know that Kurt Busch indicated this a couple weekends ago, but he basically said that before the Chicago, when they were talking about Chicago Street Course on CBS, he hinted that 2023 could be his last year in Cup. Is it very possible that next year is his last year? I don't know. Well, is this it for him? Who knows? This could be it for him, but I really hope it isn't. And the reason I don't want this to be it for Kurt, because I think Kurt could still be very, very competitive. But what I'm really, really worried about is with this whole concussion situation that's been happening to Kurt. I'm really, really worried and really, really scared that Kurt Busch is not going to perform at the same level when he comes back. The brain is such a mystery, and it might take time for him to recover, but I'm really, really scared as a Kurt Busch fan. I don't want Kurt Busch to be it for him. I hope he comes back for the end of the year. Do I think he comes back before the end of the year? I really don't know. And then the big question is that what happens to Kurt Busch's eligibility and playoff waiver? NASCAR has basically said that if Kurt Busch does, basically right now the Kurt Busch, unless he declares out of the season, they're still going to be keeping the the waiver for him. But I don't know why after Daytona you just don't give the waiver to Martin Truex Jr. Because if Kurt Busch is not going to be healthy and be back after, because if he doesn't return, which I don't think he will return until after we get back from the regular season being over, I don't know. I just really don't know at this point what's going to happen with the playoff eligibility and the waivers. But it definitely, my thing is that I'm glad Kurt Busch is taking care of his health and safety, but I am definitely starting to get concerned about Kurt Busch. I really am a little bit, and I do not like the fact that Kurt Busch for another week is out once again at another race. It's kind of concerning, and again, hopefully Kurt Busch will have another speedy recovery, but it's really, really concerning that he's out for another race. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about charters. Now, we've talked about NASCAR Charters on the channel many, many times. We got an update on the price of charters, and it's going to absolutely shock you how much charters are expected to be. According to Adam Stern, asking prices for NASCAR charters have reached $20 million per sources, despite continuing skepticism from some of the industry over the true value of the sports versions of franchises. Holy crap, that has made a major, major jump. I remember only a few months ago we talked about this on the channel that charters were $15 million. Now they're talking about them being $20 million. And why is that such a big number? Well, why is that so important? Because I think that's holding back a lot of teams from making the jump up right now. Because if you're going to want to have a charter and run full time in Cup, you need to have a charter. Because one of the big problems is that basically for the open teams, they have been taking away more and more money away from these open teams. That's been one thing they've basically been doing, is they've been taking away more money from the open teams and giving more money to the charter teams. Now, is it possible maybe these charters could decrease with the next upcoming TV deal? That is a big possibility. And are we going to see the charter system go away? I don't ever expect them to get rid of the charter system. And I think this is a big reason why Dale Jr. has not made the jump up full-time yet. I know there's talk that Dale Jr. could jump up next year part-time with the Cup Series, but I don't see him going full-time next season. I just don't see it happen now because, again, $20 million for a charter. That's absolutely insanity because, again, I remember when charters cost, and I thought by now they were going to be dropping. I thought after with Denny Hamlin signing, they were going to drop, but no. They're just getting more and more expensive, and this is going to hurt teams getting into sport long-term. So what does NASCAR have to do to really bring new teams in that don't have a lot of money? Well, number one, if you want teams to stick around, you need to start paying the teams that don't have charters more money at these races. The fact that the guy who won last year, AJ Allmendinger, who won a Kaulig, they only got 1% of the money, and they got less money than the 30th place team. Yeah, that's unacceptable in my opinion. They should be getting more money than that. It's ridiculous that teams that are open teams are getting less money, and that's why you're seeing a lot of races right now with only 36 charters. That's one thing that needs to happen. Or another option is maybe increasing the size of the field and bringing in 4 more charters, decreasing the prices for those charters, but adding 4 more charters to the field and increasing the field size up to 43 cars. I think that would make a lot more sense because, one, you get more teams. You would be able to have teams buy up charters. You could have Junior Motorsports buy a charter for a little bit cheaper than the asking price. You could absolutely have Denny Hamlin 2311 buy up a charter. You get a team like Nice Motorsports to buy up a charter. And you get other teams like the Money team to get a charter. That would be really, really cool. Now, one thing I will say is there are benefits and negatives to the charter system. The benefits is that when you sell your team to a team, you're going to get a lot of money back, and you're not losing, just selling everything, and you're not getting nothing back. With the charter system, you are getting something back, so at least that's a positive. But the negatives is that with the charter system, you're locked in every race, which in my opinion, I don't think you should be locked in a race if you have a charter. I think, especially for the Daytona 500, I don't think people should be immediately locked into Daytona 500. I also think when it comes to the Busch Light Clash, everyone will get to race again, which that's what is expected to be happening next year. That's what is expected to happen for 2023. That's what they're going to continue doing. But again, I'm just really, I'm not personally a big fan of the charter system. I said this for a long time. I'd rather have the charter system go away or go back to the top 35 owners points. But I see the benefits of the charter system. I see that basically when you sell your team, you get a ton of money back. And that at least is a benefit right there. But I said this for a long time. I'm not a big fan of the charter system. I think there are better ways to do it. And I think that there needs to be changes to it. Because again, $20 million for charters is ridiculous, and it's going to hurt NASCAR long-term if we cannot get these prices down. Hopefully, long-term when it comes to the charters, especially when it comes to the next upcoming TV deal, when these teams are going to be getting paid a little bit more, because I know Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, they've been in negotiations to basically get something done. I don't know at this point what's going to happen, but I think it's going to hurt the possibility of teams like Junior Motorsports jumping up to Cup, and I think it's really going to hurt the future of those teams currently at the moment. I think it's going to hurt them. So anyway, that is going to be it for today's Long NASCAR and Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get below over that and comment with your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about charters costing around $20 million? And do you think we'll get any new teams in NASCAR or no? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Kurt Busch being out for another race weekend at Michigan? And what do you see happening to Kurt? Do you think he comes back in the future or not? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we'll have the Camping World Truck Series race for Richmond. Of course, the second race of the round of 10 for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series playoffs. And then Sunday, we'll have the Cup Series race review from Richmond. And then Monday, we'll have either a silly season update or a NASCAR news video. Make sure to turn your notifications on because you may never know what's coming on the channel. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.